Coevolution. Everything and everyone has evolved. Ever since the beginning of life, every passing generation of bacteria, plants, animals, and humans have undergone change and transformation to bring us to our current physical state of today. Yet, evolution isn't just a genetic change of separate species over time. Species have learned to adapt and evolve together, creating a world much easier to live in for themselves and for others. This process of different creatures evolving together to create more suitable living environments is called coevolution, and it has had lasting impacts on how different species interact with each other today. Serves up.
Bill Nye the Science Guy.
Let's get together and
Coevolve.
Coevolution. It has affected the progress of life on Earth in a tremendous way. Different species of insects, plants, and animals, such as honeybees, orchid flowers, hummingbirds, and butterflies, have partaken in coevolution. These creatures have been able to thrive for many years due to the benefits of coevolution. So what exactly is coevolution? Well, coevolution is the evolutionary process that occurs when two kinds of organisms exert natural selection on each other and they, in result, influences the other's evolution. Many types of coevolution are exhibited in nature. One type is the relationship between barnacles and whales. Whales develop growths called callosities on their heads. These barnacles attach to the heads of the whales and constantly feed on the growths. The host whale acts as a home for these barnacles. There is also the relationship between acacian ants and acacian trees. These ants live in the tips of the leaf, and they feed off of the substance that is produced by the leaf. In return, the ants protect the tree and attack herbivores that happen to brush against the tree. Many coevolutionary relationships are similar to the previous ones mentioned, yet today, we will be focusing on probably the most important relationship of all: the process of bees pollinating plants. Bees and flowers, over time, have developed a very unique relationship. They both thrive off of each other every day, supporting the other species' life. They are completely dependent on one another. I am sure we're all familiar with the fact that bees help plants pollinate. Bees are attracted to these plants, and once the bee inserts itself into the plant, its body becomes immersed in the pollen of the plant. This bee would then travel to another plant of the same species and repeat the process, thus helping the plant reproduce and helping that specific species of plants thrive in the future. Yet, why would bees help pollinate different flowers? They aren't just doing it for fun. Bees gain energy from the fats and proteins of the pollen. The nectar from the flowers also provides the bees with food. After the bees pollinate flowers, they bring this nectar back to the beehives, where they take the nectar and eventually transform it into honey. Both the plants and the bees that go through pollination are aware, because of many years of evolution, that they are contingent on each other to keep their species prosperous for many years to come. You're probably wondering, Bill, what originated this relationship between bees and plants that advanced into our time? And why is there a Greek flag behind you? Well, it's quite interesting actually. Scientists believe that around 100 million years ago, during the Cretaceous period, flowers and bees had blossomed into the new relationship known as coevolution. They have been able to determine this through studies done on fossils. Researchers had found a bee extremely well preserved in amber, which has been verified to be 100 million years old. Researchers have also discovered fossils of flowers around the same age as the amber bee. The type of flower that they found in the fossil is called an angiosperm. This kind of flower needs to be pollinated to be able to reproduce. The bee discovered, called Militosphex spermensis, is what researchers believe is a kind of insect that helped develop the plant-pollinator relationship that exists among plants and bees today. Over these hundreds of millions of years that bees have existed, the relationship between the bees and the plants that they pollinate has caused the honeybee to evolve to the ideal design to make obtaining nectar and pollen effortless. The proboscis is able to reach deep within the flower's folds to acquire nectar. The back legs of honeybees have been enlarged in order to carry extra pollen within the pollen basket. The hair located on the bee's abdomen builds a static charge as the bee flies, so when a bee lands in a flower, pollen is literally attracted to the bee. Flowers also have evolved to be sure that bees will be attracted to them to ensure pollination. Plants were first discovered around the Ordovician period 475 million years ago. They were able to reproduce through different types of pollination like wind. 350 million years later, some of the first flowering species of plants came about during the Cretaceous period. These fossils of flowers do not show any exterior seeds, leading scientists to believe that they must have been pollinated by another creature, such as insects. The spiral shape in the center of these fossils are similar to the spiral shape of present-day magnolias, which are pollinated by insects today. Because bees are not able to see red-colored flowers, bees will typically be attracted to flowers with a yellow or blue type color. Flowers that require pollinators to reproduce have evolved into these kinds of colors. Insects can also be attracted by the UV rays given off by nectar and by the scent of the flowers. This plant pollinator type of coevolution has been around for a long time now. This kind of coevolutionary relationship is kind of like having a buddy. Charles Darwin calls it the mutual interactions of organisms, or mutual coevolution. Kind of like you would help a buddy out with their science homework, these two different species, like bees and flowers or hummingbirds and flowers, will evolve in order to help each other out. In both occasions, the hummingbirds and bees are helping the flowers reproduce, and the flowers are helping feed the bees and hummingbirds with nectar. But it doesn't stop there. Plants will also evolve into different shapes to help the species that are pollinating them. Hummingbirds are constantly feeding on the nectar of plants because of the amount of energy they waste from flying around all day. Flowers have been able to make it more convenient for the hummingbirds to feed off of their nectar by evolving and growing into a flower that, when fully blossomed, will have a similar shape to the beak of the hummingbird. You may also notice that some flowers' petals grow in an outward direction, leaving room for the hummingbird to fly and eat the nectar from the flower simultaneously. Charles Darwin had once predicted the coevolution between two different organisms without ever discovering one of them. Darwin had discovered a plant called the star orchid in Madagascar, which had a 25 centimeter long flower spur, so he logically thought that there would need to be an insect with matching tongue length to pollinate the plant. In 1903, this insect was first described, yet it wasn't until 1997 that scientist L.T. Wasserthal observed the process in person.
Isn't that interesting, guys?
One other extremely cool example of coevolution is the relationship between orchid bees and orchid plants. These orchid flowers have evolved to mimic the shape and color of a female bumblebee. The orchid would also produce the same smell as a female bee, which will drive the male orchid crazy. Since this bee will look at the flower and think there's a foxy female bee, the bee will try to mate with the flower, but the bee ends up being very disappointed because there was no other bee there. Instead, the bee will unintentionally pollinate the orchid flower. It wasn't quite the reproduction the bee was looking for, but it'll have to do.
Now what does coevolution... Yo, hey, where's my tie? You know I can't film anything without a bow tie on. Now what does coevolution have to do with you? Well, there's the obvious. Pollination. Without insects and bees that pollinate our plants, plenty of foods that are in our diet today would be non-existent. Although the wind is able to pollinate corn, wheat, and rice, honeybees pollinate other plants that add a variety of vitamins to our diet, like berries, vegetables, and more.
About 87% of the world's flowering plants are pollinated with a mutual relationship with another insect or animal. This relationship is very important to our agricultural system, which produces billions of dollars every year all over the world. Without this relationship, us humans would be lacking clean, purified air to breathe every day from the assistance of flowers. Flowers are becoming of more importance every day because of the increasing amount of CO2 given off from greenhouse gases. Flowers are acting as a way to absorb carbon. This prevents the greenhouse gas effect from going overboard and causing our planet to overheat. The abundance of plants that exist in our world from pollination help keep these numbers in check.
Without the process of coevolution, the world as we know it would be gone.
And the Oscar goes to Johnny Pierce.
Love him like a baby. Oh my god. Oh, thank you so much. I'd like to thank the Academy first of all, letting us have the ceremony in our basement, in my basement. I'd like to thank every single works cited thing I had. Alex Gelman, thanks for the creative title. Anita, my section head, because she's the best. Joy Armanda and Alex Janine for helping me film. My mom, I love her. I'll see you upstairs for dinner. I don't know. This thing was just such a slam dunk to film. I just don't know what to say. Thank you, good night.